everyone, and welcome to the life and career of, well, the life of Patrick Troughton. But I will also talk about his career. Basically, because Doctor Who, I want to talk about all the actors. Because the point of this whole series, the retrospective, talking about the Doctor's adventures, and talking about the actors, is to pay respect to those who came before us and pave the way so that 50 plus years later we have Doctor Who to talk about. So basically just a quick rundown of information that I got about, Mr. Troughton's life. First off, obviously Mr. Troughton got started with Doctor Who at the midpoint of Season 4, at the end of the 10th planet, starting with the power of the Daleks. And he continued through the end of Season 6, with his final arc being the War Games. So yeah, but here's some other information you may not have known about Mr. Troughton. Let's see, for starters, he was born on March 25th, 1920, in Mill Hill, Middlesex, England, to Alec George Troughton and Dorothy Evelyn Offord. He also had several siblings, Alec Roberts and Mary Edith, and they all attended Mill Hill School. Go figure. He would later attend the Embassy School of Acting and studied under Eileen Thorndike. He would go on to win a scholarship to the Leighton Rallius Studios at the John Drew Memorial Theater in Long Island, New York. So he actually crossed the ocean. It doesn't say when, but that's pretty cool. Anyway, though, and in 1939 he joined the Tonbridge Repertory Company. Going into World War II, because, like Mr. Hartnell, he was involved as well. When the war began, he was returning home on a Belgian ship, which was struck by a sea mine, and unfortunately was sank off the coast of Great Britain. Luckily, he was able to escape in a lifeboat, so, obviously the story didn't end there. Go figure. Joined the Royal Navy in 1940 and was commissioned as a lieutenant with the Royal Naval Volunteer Reserve. He was first employed on East Coast convoy duty, February to August 1941. He also served with Coastal Forces motor gunboats based at Great Yarmouth. Sorry, I'm not British. I don't know how to say these things. From November 1942 to 1945. Earned the 1939 to 1945 Star, an award to subjects of the British Commonwealth for service in the Second World War. So, it's pretty cool. Earned the Atlantic Star, an award to subjects of the British Commonwealth for service in the Second World War, specifically those who took part in the Battle of the Atlantic, the longest continuous campaign of the war. So, and also he was mentioned in dispatches and communications to the higher-ups noting their gallant or meritorious actions against the enemy. So, Mr. Troughton had a bit more success with the military in World War II than Mr. Hartnell did. So, respect to you for that, sir. And I'm not trying to hate on Hartnell, but his issues were like nerves and such. He was in the tank division, and yeah. Anyway, moving on to, before Doctor Who. Worked with the Amersham Repertory Company, I believe I mentioned that already, the Bristol Old Vic Company, and the Pilgrim Players at the Mercury Theatre in Notting Hill Gate. In 1947, made his television debut and his film debut in 1948. Had smaller roles in Olivier's Hamlet, the film Escape, which also featured Hartnell, interestingly enough, in 1948, I believe. And in 1950, had a small pirate role in Treasure Island. And also, it's just noteworthy to say that television was his favorite medium. In 1953, he became the first actor to portray Robin Hood on television, starring in 6 half-hour episodes on the BBC titled Robin Hood. So that's cool. Would later appear in The Adventures of Robin Hood, a series that ran from 1955 to 1959. 1955, he appeared as the murderer Tyrrell in Olivier's film Richard III. Laurence Olivier, I believe. He was also Olivier's understudy and appears as him in many long shots, I guess in Richard III. So that's pretty cool. Some other noteworthy television appearances. He played Kettle in Chance of a Lifetime. I don't know how to say this name, so I'm going to put the text below, but Sir Andrew Ffoulkes in The Scarlet Pimpernel in 1955. He played Phineas in Jason and the Argonauts in 1963, and Quilp in Curiosity Shop. And was also offered the part of Johnny Ringo in the Doctor Who story The Gunfighters, but turned it down. So he could have been on Doctor Who before he was on Doctor Who. Oh, it's just funny. Let's see. With Hartnell stepping down from the role because of arteriosclerosis, I believe, the crew had to look for replacements. And they made the bold choice to go with someone who wasn't, sounded like or look alike. Troughton was chosen because of his extensive and versatile experience as a character actor, and Hartnell approved of the choice. And again, that's one of the things that I really love is Hartnell was in on this. Well, not in on it, but he approved of the choice of, hey, I like this guy. Can we bring him in? And here's where things get a little weird and interesting. Troughton's early thoughts on how to portray the character included some interesting ideas. A tough sea captain and a piratical figure in blackface with a turban. Yeah, in today's PC world, that probably would not have flown very well. So I'm glad they were like, no blackface. Blackface is bad. Oh, God. They eventually settled on the idea of the Doctor being kind of a cosmic hobo in the vein of Charlie Chaplin. And quickly, just to explain it to the best of my ability, Charlie Chaplin was a silent film actor in the earlier 1900s, the silent film era. Basically, he was a bit over the top, a bit silly, and yeah, so I guess over the top, kind of silly character was what they were going for. I don't know, I'm trying to interpret. And I got a lot more to talk about. Let's see. During his time on the series, he tended to shun publicity and rarely gave interviews. So that's, cool, interesting. And he justified this with the statement, I think that acting is magic, and if I tell you all about myself, it will spoil it. Oh, and he noted that his greatest concern was that too much publicity would limit his opportunities as a character actor after he left the role. So there was some good logic to it, and I appreciate that. And maybe it's something I'll try and keep in mind myself. In another interview, he revealed that he always liked dressing up and would have been happy as a school teacher, as children keep one young. I mean, that's cool. He could have been a teacher, but he chose to be an actor, and he ultimately became the Doctor and influenced so many people. Either way, he could have done well, and I like that. Troughton was very popular with the production crew and his co-stars. Producer Lloyd credited him with having a leading actor's temperament. He was a father figure to the whole company, and hence could embrace it and sweep it along with him. So that's cool. He's a good guy on set. Troughton would eventually leave the series after 3 years, in 1969. Basically, the big issue was the grueling schedule. They were doing 40 to 44 episodes every year for a weekly show. So yeah, and obviously there are 52 weeks in a year, so it was a bit much. Also, part of the reason was, the fear of being typecast. Hartnell, before this, he was typecast as a crook, a sergeant, etc. A very tough guy, and I could see some typecasting with, the overwhelmed, professor type or something, so I can appreciate that. Though he left the series, he would return on several occasions, returning to the character more often than any other who portrayed the Doctor, after ending their regular connection with the series. In the 10th anniversary, the 3 Doctors. In the 20th anniversary, the 5 Doctors. He also agreed to attend Doctor Who conventions, including the show's 20th anniversary celebrations at Longleat in 1983. He also came in to act alongside the 6th Doctor in the 2 Doctors serial. Reportedly, he advised the 5th Doctor to limit his time on the show to 3 seasons to avoid typecasting. And the young actor followed his advice. God. Sorry, it's really hot. In the 50th anniversary special, An Adventure in Space and Time, he appeared as a character, played by Reese Shearsmith. I'm going to put the name down because, hey, respect. In the 2014 Doctor Who serial Robot of Sherwood, a still image of Troughton from the 1953 Robin Hood series is shown. Because basically it deals with, Robin of Locksley, Robin Hood, the guy who stole from the rich, gave it to the poor. Very famous character. I might talk about him one day. But, yeah. So I thought that was a nice little, throwback to him. And then after Doctor Who, basically just some quick film roles. He played Clove in The Scars of Dracula. He played a body snatcher in Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. He played Father Brennan in The Omen, 1976. It's a very famous horror movie. I haven't seen it myself, but I did see at least the clip of Father Brennan, unfortunately, dying. Spoiler alert. And he played Melanthius in Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger. And television roles, and there are a lot. The two major ones were Thomas Howard III, Duke of Norfolk. I'm going to put that text down, because yeah, I just said that. In the Six Wives of Henry VIII, he played Nazca in The Feathered Serpent. Basically just a television program. And then guest spots. There's a lot. Let's see. He had guest spots in The Goodies, Paul Temple, Dr. Finlay's Casebook, Doomwatch, The Persuaders, A Family at War, Coronation Street, Softly Softly Task Force, Colditz, Play for Today, Z-Cars, Special Branch, Sutherland's Law, The Sweeney, Jason King, Survivors, Crown Court, Angels, Warship, Vandervalk, Space 1999, interesting sounding. The Wundin Lane, All Creatures Great and Small, Only When I Laugh, Nanny, Minder, The Box of Delights. He was a regular character in the LTW sitcom The Two of Us. Guested in an episode of Supergran in May 1987. His last film role, unfortunately. And then there's some more later life stuff. Later in life, he developed a serious heart condition through overwork and stress, unfortunately. I don't know if it was just Doctor Who, or if it was Doctor Who, World War II, and just all of that film work. But yeah, he gotten advised on the issue by doctors, but unfortunately ignored them, and suffered, well, three major heart attacks, but two were 1979 and 1984. The big issue with that was it didn't allow him to work for several months because, yeah. And then finally we get to the end of the road. Troughton was a guest at OpusCon in Columbus, Georgia, in the U.S. in 1987. They were going to have a belated birthday party for him and watch all the surviving episodes he was in from Doctor Who. And I guess he was pretty eager to watch The Dominators. And the reason I say belated birthday was because this is actually a couple of days after his birthday. Unfortunately, he had his third and final heart attack at 7:25 in the morning after ordering breakfast. And the paramedics say he died instantly. He would be cremated and his ashes would be scattered beneath a newly planted tree in his favorite bushy park in Teddington, London. And then just some quick stuff about family life, and I have some personal things I'm going to say for after, but married his first wife, Margaret Dunlop, in 1943, and then started living a double life when, just after the birth of his third child, he chose to leave Margaret and their three children to live with girlfriend Ethel Margaret Bunny. He maintained such a good deception of having stayed with his original family that his mother died not knowing the truth. He never married Ethel, but he did marry another woman, Sheila Holdup. He had 2 daughters, 4 sons, and 2 stepchildren. Joanna Troughton, who is an author and illustrator of children's books. David Troughton, who's an actor. Michael Troughton, who is an actor, and also wrote Patrick's biography, which I hope to read and talk about. Jane Troughton, Peter Patrick Troughton, Mark Troughton, who was a pastor of York Evangelical Church. And then grandchildren. Sam Troughton, also known for Robin Hood, the 2006 television series. Jim Troughton played professional cricket for Warwickshire. And Harry Melling. He played Dudley Dursley in the Harry Potter films. So that's a cool thing. In total, he had 25 film roles from 1948 to 1978, and his television roles, with guest appearances and all that, 194 from 1947 to 1987. And that, everyone, is the story of Mr. Troughton. He lived a long life from 1920 to 1987. He did some good. He played the doctor. He served in the Second World War. I don't approve of his family life. In that, oh hey, I'm going to leave my wife and all that. But at this point, it's not very relevant. So I will say, Mr. Troughton, I respect some of the things you did, as a person. Other things, I'm not as supportive of you in. But I want to thank you for showing us that regeneration for Doctor Who can work. And, for all of the entertainment and joy that you brought people. But yeah. And then, in relation to his biography, I hope to talk about that in the future. But, I want to at least do something for everyone. So at the very least, I have these videos. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And I would like to say this is the end of the month of the Second Doctor, but I've got one more thing to talk about after this. Obviously, now that we have several Doctors, I'm sure there are people who are like, okay, but where do they stack up in relation to each other? And unfortunately, I've taken some time and I've come up with an answer to that question. Really quick, I want to stress that's my personal opinion, but yeah, and I will share that. So stick around, everyone, because the next episode is going to be ranking the Doctors. Hoo boy. But anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. And, well, I'll just close with, as always, everyone, have fun, stay safe, keep hydrated, and remember, every character has a story to tell. I'm Valiant Bradley James, the character investigator. Peace.